Well, okay.
Okay, I'm rolling whenever you're comfortable to go.
I was born in Matador, Texas on September 8th, 1928 at my grandparents' house. We lived in Fort Worth at the time, but we came to my grandparents' house so they could look after me and my mommy and my older sister, Jean, who was only 14 months older than I. My mother had gone to business school, which served them well because my dad was a very hard worker and loved to work, but he was a lousy businessman. I mean, he would figure a job on a torn paper sack and, he didn't know anything about profit and loss. He just figured out how much sheet metal and how many hours it would take, and it was up to my mother to say we didn't make money on that job or we did. And of course we were poor. Keep in mind I was born in 1928 and the Depression was being felt by nearly everyone, and we didn't have a car, and so my dad had to walk any place that he went, and car fare was a nickel, but he would walk miles to save that nickel because that bought a lot in those days. I can remember him looking for work with holes in his shoes and my mom and dad laughing as they cut liners for his shoes out of cardboard, and they seemed to always keep their sense of humor, and my mother always knew that they would get by, and she was a big part of taking risk and doing things that would help them to get by. Then later on, he went to work for Lockheed, and he was one of the pioneers in aircraft aviation, and we actually lived on Lover's Lane. Most of the time when we were growing up, we had somebody living with us, either my mother's sister or two of them, or her brother, or other people that just needed help, and we didn't have the room, but somehow we made room, and we certainly didn't have the money, but somehow we all made do and enjoyed it and each other. And they even took two orphans out of the orphans' home and gave them a home, and this was during the war when things were going a little bit better for us. But I can remember as a kid, on Saturday, if we had done our chores and weren't being punished for something, we got 12 cents to go to the movie and had which cost a dime, and got 2 cents worth of candy. And if you were judicious about how you picked your candy, it was enough to last through a double feature, a couple of cartoons, a newsreel, and a cereal. And we walked, crossed all kinds of major streets. Sometimes it was dark when you got home. Didn't matter, you weren't afraid, your parents weren't concerned about you. It was just a whole different way of life. I think other people help look after other people's children. I know that was the way it was in the year I lived with our grandmother. They just turned us loose in the summertime, or after school. And we'd go to the park, we'd climb trees, we robbed bird nests, we cooked birds' eggs, we made fires, we waited in the irrigation ditches, and nobody worried about us. If we got hungry, we went to the store, to my grandfather's store, and he gave us bologna and bread and, and whatnot. And of course, there were no malls, not even strip malls. There were only department stores, and you'd have to take the streetcar and do your shopping there. And of course, a lot of shopping was done through catalogs because having two cars in a family was just unheard of. And so if it was pouring down rain or hailing or whatever, you walked home from school because there was no other option. That's what you did. And then we moved it to a nicer area where I started Washington High School. And we lived in one house on 78th for about a year that my mother had fixed up, and then they sold it and bought another house that we lived in for almost till I got out of high school. But they sold that house and moved when I was a senior in high school, but they made arrangements for me to live in the dorm at Pepperdine so I could finish up my senior year. I was in an auto accident when I was a senior and missed the first days of school that I had missed since elementary school, when I missed a solid month with the mumps. Then I started Pepperdine in the fall and met Walt a couple months later.
And in the fall, Louise started to Pepperdine, and she started going to Central Church. So we, between us, don't know where we met. First at church or Pepperdine, but we met both places almost simultaneously because we were going to college together and small school and so forth. And it was exciting, so it has to be there. From then on, for the first few months, she was dating other people and I was dating other people.
I even asked him to a Sadie Hawkins Day function, but I was too late. He was already taken. And so he went with Norma Davis, and
She was a doll.
she was really cute.
Good afternoon. Yes. You have to buy extra for that. Okay. Shame on you. Okay. Are you going to be home later? I need to call and talk to you about a girl that was at church this morning that used to go to North Street. Okay, when you get home, call me. Okay. Just call me when you get home. I'll call you when I get home. Okay, doll. Thank you, sweetie. Bye-bye. Putting in an order for script for one of her friends. And she went to Red Lobster Day without any script. That's why I was saying shame on her.
Anyway, I liked him right away, and he was a little bit, standoffish, and kind of had the feeling that the girls only liked him because he had this nice new car. And he still teases me about that to this day, that's the only reason I went with him, because he had a new car, and I tell him some of my other boyfriends had cars too, but he still teases me about it.
Lulu was so beautiful, but she was so vain. She wouldn't even wear her glasses on campus. And me and any other fella could holler at her, whistle at her, and she didn't even know who was whistling. So she just waved at all the boys, all the time. And my brother and I, our voice was so much alike that we got where we would call her and ask us to meet her in the library, and she didn't know who she was meeting. And we'd both go over there, and she wouldn't know who had been. So we had a lot of fun playing with her.
They had a lot of fun.
Yes, they did. But as I started to say earlier, back to the time, what a catch she was and has been all this time. But I still think my new car helped get her. Didn't keep her, but I think it helped get her, because not many people had new cars in those day and time. So finally, we courted 21 months. We announced our engagement at a surprise. It was a Valentine party at one of the members of the church houses at Central, Brother Claude Worley. And I think we shocked everybody, because I had told everybody, I'm not going to get married. I'm going to finish school. I'm going to keep dating anybody. I'm not going to just stay very much with Louise, but she was getting me in more and more. So finally we announced our engagement. And Louise says that Alma's eyes dropped out of her head that night.
So I thought I was going to gloat, but Alma looked so hurt that I just felt sorry for her.
But anyway, from then on, and then that was in February, naturally, Valentine's. And we got married in June, and we had dated for 21 months all total, And our first apartment was really exciting. It was a little one-bedroom, barely big enough to get a double bed, and a fold-down bed in the living room and a kitchen. Maybe it was 300 square feet or 400, the whole thing. It was real tiny, 100 years old at the time we moved in.
We were lucky to get it.
But we were lucky. Apartments were hard to get right after the war. Well, about this time we were already going, and then along came Tina, and of course she was born on January 10th, but the last week of December she took castor oil and every kind of thing that's supposed to make babies come, so we could have a tax deduction that year. But it didn't work.
Oh, it worked. She just didn't come. The house that we lived in where Tina was born was this old house, but it was big. We had the largest house of any of our friends, because it had 2 bedrooms, and even though the potty was out on the screen porch, and it had a living room and a dining room and a big kitchen and a pantry and an ice box. That's the kind you put ice in. And it had this big old stove looked like a wooden stove, and the oven didn't have a thermometer, but we managed to cook pretty good on that old thing.
You did great.
And it was a lot of fun, and like he said, we were as happy there as we are now in a big house.
We bought our first house on the GI Bill, which was no down payment in those days and low interest rates. The first year I was taking specialty courses in children's dentistry, because I had some professors in dentistry and dental school that were just very motivating, and I decided that's what I wanted to do, even though they didn't have special places to go to graduate school after dental school in those days. So I did buy this little lot just about a mile from our house, and we designed this office with help of an architect, and Louise decorated it so beautiful. It was called the Big Top, like a circus. Had all animals and everything all on all the walls.
I guess those art lessons I took when I was about 11 to 14 paid off.
Paid off great. And as we all know, Louise, she's a beautiful artist doing anything. And she just painted these cute little pictures, and every room was a different type of animal and different things. And it was a circus act. And then later on, we changed it from a circus to a zoo and drew different animals on the wall, you know. But it was really a very attractive office, and really was wonderful for my practice, and it got people coming in just to see the office. May not want to see me as a children's dentist, but it built my practice terrifically, because I was the first children's dentist in the San Fernando Valley, you know. So in that time, it was really a rarity.
And in the meantime, we were paying off his uncle that lent us the money for dental school.
Matter of fact, I called my uncle and asked him, would he finance that building for me? He said, I don't finance building, I finance people. Pay me off. So I had to go to the bank and borrow money, and I had to go have my mother sign and all that kind of stuff, you know. But we got it done.
We were very, very blessed to have all of our children be just opinionated and a few other things, but healthy.
But we've been blessed materially by the Lord by so much, not only no church problems, but we've just been blessed materially in so much. And I think about my marriage, and we talk about advice for people. And I look back and think, what if I'd married one of those other girls who wasn't as spiritual as Louise has been? And I've told her, and I've told our kids, and of course they know this, she did a lot more with raising our kids than I did. And somebody says, well, you're supposed to be the leader of the home. And I said, yeah, but I'm not with them all day, every day like she is. She prayed with them most every day before they left for school. She is the one who really gave them their spiritual guidance at home. But it takes two. And how do you keep a marriage together? Pick a mate that's going to stay together. How do you stay faithful to God? Pick a mate that you'll help each other. Two can stay faithful a whole lot better than one.
We both, Walt and I both, felt like it was a blessing to have our folks live across the street from us the last 10 years of their lives, even though they moved there so that we could be of help to them, but they were a help to us too, and that we saw how to grow old and how to be patient and how to accept the frailties that come with old age, and the upbeat spirit that they had. My dad was wonderful to my mom. They were in a car accident in Arkansas, and my mother spent the better part of 9 years in a cast, and he was just wonderful to her. And my aunt used to say, if he didn't make it to heaven, nobody's going to. And even though there was work involved in that, I think we both felt like it was a blessing. And my mother was always so proud, and I don't know how many times she told people, I'm the only one I know that's son-in-law wanted them to move across the street from him. But he was a big help. And I'd be taking him to the doctor because he couldn't. And my mother would say, as I'm helping her into the doctor, it's too bad Walt couldn't take us. And I was thinking, well, I'm chopped liver, I guess, you know.
Well, Louise and I have said that we hope that if we get to the state we need our children to take care of us, that we'll be as pleasant to take care of as Riley and Gladys were, because they were wonderful people.
Well, we've had a wonderful 51 years. And if any of our children or grandchildren or great-great-children are watching this tape, I'd like to tell them that how blessed that I feel to have Christian grandparents, Christian parents that taught you to love and respect God's word and to have the courage to stand against the crowd and to teach you that relationships are what matter, not things. And my dad was a big part of that. I can remember him saying that a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. And he really believed that. And really that's what matters, is the relationships that you develop. First of all, the one with God, then with your family, and then with your friends. And that's what gets you through your troubles and your trials. And I've been blessed to have Walt for a husband and as my best friend.
Mm-hmm. And are we just about through?
I would just like to say that we're very proud of our kids. They make us look like really good parents.
Very good.